Hi, good morning, folks. We're waiting on a few more people to hop on, and we'll get started in just a few seconds. Good morning. Welcome to our first Bank On North Carolina Summit. Before we get started, I want to thank all of our sponsors supporting Bank On North Carolina and the Bank On Summit. But I want to take a moment to recognize our presenting sponsor, Wells Fargo. They have been the presenting sponsor for the Collaboratives Conferences and Summits for the past 10 years, and we really appreciate their support. And here's a message from our sponsor.
You know the meaning of hard work and the value of trust. Now, you can trust banking that makes your money work as hard as you do. Keep more hard-earned money in your pocket with the Bank On Certified account instead of paying check cashing or overdraft fees, and safely build your savings so you can help secure a brighter future for those who matter most. Bank On Certified accounts are available at many banks, including Wells Fargo. Get no overdraft fees. Get fraud protection. Get direct deposit. Bank On.
Thank you. And so, as I said, we are so excited to have you here with us, but even more excited about this work. Bank On certified accounts are held at federally insured banks that meet certain standards that deem them non-predatory and accessible to those who may be ineligible for other bank products. This work is so important because you cannot build wealth or move out of poverty without a bank account. Our Bank On North Carolina Coalition launched in December of last year. And since then, the coalition has been working as a group to define this work and individually to engage nonprofit partners, community leaders, and financial institutions. Through this work, Bank On North Carolina plans to focus our support on those receiving employment assistance, youth services, VITA, affordable housing, and financial literacy and equity services. This work will involve working intimately with organizations serving these communities to integrate Bank On North Carolina into their services. Throughout this summit, please consider community partners that you work with, opportunities that you may see, or your personal or professional connections that can be leveraged to scale the work of Bank On. At this time, I'd like to present or share some of our Bank On North Carolina engagement partners. These are the organizations that have attended our coalition meetings and are supportive of this work. Thank you so much for your support and your partnership. So before we get started, I have a few housekeeping announcements. This meeting is being recorded, as you saw when you logged on, and we'll be sharing it later. Even though everyone is muted, this is a group discussion. Share your comments or ask questions using the Q&A feature. We want you to maximize this webinar experience. You don't need to be an expert. We're all here to learn, and we welcome your insights. So get comfortable and engage with us. And throughout the program, be considering ways to apply the insights shared to the work that you're doing every day. So we will start with a discussion on Bank On with banking and the wealth gap, and then on how Bank On Coalition can help to facilitate conversations with the unbanked, and why Bank On is a great opportunity for banks as well. So right now, I'm going to hand it over to one of the collaborative board members and the policy director for NC Child, Tiffany Gladney, who's going to lead our discussion on Bank On equity.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Marquita. So 49% of Black and 34% of Hispanic households were unbanked or completely underbanked, compared to just 15% of white households in 2019. This and the disparities in the wealth of Black and Brown compared to that of white households paint a picture of a financial system that's riddled with systemic issues. This panel discussion will explore the critical role that Bank On NC and banking access will play in racial equity efforts. And as Marquita mentioned, I am Tiffany Gladney. I am a proud board member of the collaborative, but more importantly for today, I am your moderator. So feel free to put anything in the chat if you have any questions or concerns or whatever. So with that being said, I want to allow the panelists to introduce themselves. So Victor, you are actually first on my screen, so I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Marquita, and thank you, Bank On North Carolina, for allowing me to have this opportunity to share on this esteemed panel. My name is Victor Galloway. I am the Community Affairs Specialist for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, otherwise known as FDIC. I cover the entire state of North Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia. I also support South Carolina and Alabama, and I'm glad to be part of this conversation.
Thank you, Victor. Now we'll turn it to Harriet.
Morning, Tiffany, and good morning to everyone out there. So my name is Harriet Reynolds, and I am the Financial Empowerment Lead at Families Together. And our agency works to house our families, homeless families, and provide case management during that entire process and up to 1 year after they have been housed. And I'm happy to be here this morning.
Thank you. Nick, if you want to round us out.
Everyone, thanks for having me on. My name is Nick Means. I'm the Training and Development Officer for F&M Bank in Salisbury, North Carolina. I serve on the North Carolina Bankers Association Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, and I do some financial literacy here with our high school, middle school students within our communities, trying to enhance the financial literacy knowledge so that we can continue to battle these problems that we're going to be discussing on today.
Awesome. Thanks for that. So we'll just launch right into the questions and really get a feel for this wealth of knowledge y'all have. So for all of y'all, talk about from your perspective, how does race impact or intersect with banking access?
So I jump in. So FDIC doesn't really directly work with the consumers, but however, as you mentioned in your data, we provide intricate information and resources to identify the banking patterns of households throughout the country. And with that, the data has shown that there is a gap between participation of BIPOC communities into the mainstream banking system. And as a result, we see that that population has chosen alternative financial services that might not be safe, might not be affordable, and might also create long-term risk and also impact and actually strip wealth. And so with that, FDIC continues to try to promote public confidence in our banking system to make sure that we can bring in those populations who might not fully participate in the banking system to get all the benefits of having a safe and affordable and secured bank account. And so I think it's an overlap between the regulatory industry, the financial industry, and also the greater community to look at how this work can either shrink that gap or really educate the population about the needs and the concern.
So this is Harriet. I'm going to go ahead and piggyback off of what Victor said. I think he's absolutely right, that there is a population that's not participating in banking. And I was in banking for over 13 years myself. And there's several reasons. There's probably a long list of those reasons, but some of it is something as simple as the way that certain clients, when they walk through that door, how they're perceived, certain biases about the way a person looks or the amount of money that they have in their account. So I think just recently we had a client who's very uncomfortable about walking through those bank doors, and we've had to assist her with getting those accounts open, and just being judged sometimes. So I think that it's something as simple as walking through those bank doors and being treated a certain way is one of the reasons why our community or community of color, whatever, is uncomfortable with having those relationships with the banking industry.
Nick, I see you nodding. So I take it you agree. Is there anything you want to add there?
Definitely. I think Victor hit the nail on the head when it comes to education. Historically, we have not had access to the banking industry. Therefore, we became uneducated. That's how they kept us out. So that whenever we did have the opportunity, whenever, Regulation B and the Community Reinvestment Act, all of these amendments to the original way to keep us out of the system, once those were enacted, now we're playing catch up. So if we don't have the information, if we don't have the resources, how can we educate our own? So that's why a lot of people now in this space are trying to be intentional about leveling the playing field. That frustrates some people because they feel left out. However, historically, we've been left out. And it's time that, America does right by us to make us make it a point to provide us what it is that we are, for lack of better words, owed.
Thank you for that. And, all three of y'all hit on points, whether it was lack of access, biases, lack of education and resources. And listening to y'all speak, all I heard there was barriers. So what are some of the other barriers facing your clients when it comes to banking? Harriet, I'm going to pick on you first because I see you're off mute.
Okay, sure. One of the barriers definitely in our area is lack of banks in a certain location, in a certain neighborhood. Not too far from our agency, on one side, there's 2-3 banks. If you cross over into predominantly African-American neighborhood, there's probably not a bank within 10, and I thought about this and just kind of visualized. There's not a bank within 10, maybe 15 miles. There was one, and it closed down several years ago. So I think access to banking, and Nick and Victor both hit on this, is lack of financial literacy, understanding the bank process, understanding how important that relationship is, and building that relationship. So those are some of the barriers that I think are an issue right now.
Nick, Victor, anything else you want to contribute? No pressure, though.
I would say a barrier as well is the lack of empathy. There's an emotional barrier. Whenever Harriet just talked about it, whenever people of color sometimes enter into that organization, that institution, do they feel welcome? We haven't had access to the information. So we may be a little slower when it comes to comprehend the expectations of being a client. Is anyone taking the time to explain that to us? Is anyone taking the time to go over the products and services that best fit our needs to prevent us from continuing to go into this vicious cycle of poverty? We were always told to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, and that's one of the terms that just irks me. But how can you tell someone to pull themselves up by the bootstraps when they don't even have soles on their shoes? So again, we have to be intentional, and you got to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. And I think we have to continue to be intentional to educate on how to become financial literate, how to handle our finances, how to manage our money so that we can become investors, so that we can ultimately, again, shrink that wealth gap.
That's a good point. And, I often say, sometimes they say, pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. What if I don't have boots? What if I don't have laces? Then what? So Victor, to you, from your perspective, what works, what hasn't worked, and what should be next?
Thank you for the question, provocative question. And so let me go ahead and just set the tone and tenor. My thoughts are my thoughts and not necessarily representing those of the director of FDIC or policy statement. So since I got that out of the way, I gave it some thought when I was looking at this, Tiffany, and one of the things I say that works, from my perspective, that works is innovative and inclusive partnerships, like the Bank On, like with Nick and Harriet, that are targeted surgical partnerships between collaboration between not-for-profit and the banking industries that have a particular focused outcome that embrace not only innovation, but also meet the people where they are. It cannot be, in my opinion, transactional. It must be relationship driven, but it also must agree on a collective collaborative for a specific outcome. And for example, as Nick mentioned, education, and Harriet mentioned branch location. If those two does not come together, then no matter how much Nick educate, if Harriet can't get someone to have access to capital and credit, we just have well-educated, unbanked citizens. If Harriet has a branch and they're not educated, then you're going to have this cycle, as Nick mentioned, where folks go in not trusting the people on the other side of the counter, not thinking they are worthy to enter into the building to access affordable capital and credit. So I think what works is partnerships like Bank On that can bring in like-minded experts to have a surgical focus on a specific outcome and not waste time, with fluff and historical data that we all know exists, but don't have any solution to meet the needs of the day. What I think has not worked is the approach of it being transactional and non-realistic goals without really considering the time involved and also the capacity that's needed to meet those objectives. And what I mean by that is that this work, as Nick said, is not new. I'm a former banker. I'm a former lobbyist. I'm a former philanthropic advocate in the community. And so this work has been going pre my time. But I think when it becomes sexy and when some unfortunate tragedy happen, then we act like it's a raised conscience, but it's really not that. I think we must make sure that there's equity, not only at the front line, but also in leadership. I think what's not working is that we have a lot of folks who are boots on the ground, but when they go back to the institution, there's no buy-in from corporation or leadership. And matter of fact, most of them don't even realize that there's not a branch in 10-mile radius of the population they're trying to say that they're reaching. So I think until all have some stake in it at leadership, it must become a cultural competency within every organization, particularly in our financial institutions. If the top leadership does not have buy-in or believe in the mission, then it's going to manifest itself down at the branch level and the community level. Vice versa, if the community partner really don't have a plan to execute to meet the needs of the clients they serve, and they really are just what I call giving water cooler conversation, but don't have a plan to say, hey, I want to make sure I move X number of people into this position so they can make better choices with the information I give, then they know. And I tell my nonprofit family, you can't be all things to all people. You're not a buffet. You have to be very intentional. Why? Because Nick won't know what you do. If Nick don't understand what you do, that he can't champion you inside his organization and say that Harriet does everything, whatever. We don't need everybody to everything. We need somebody about financial education for this particular segment and be able to have that partnership. And so what's needed next is really to move past what I call these larger forums and give me 5 to 6 people who want to roll up their sleeves and get the work done. I don't need any more conferences. I don't need any more reports. I don't need any more research. I don't need any more folks to tell me what the problem is. What I need is a tactical team that can address the issue like a bank on and get work done. I mean, it's not anything new. Housing has been an issue. Access to affordable capital has been an issue. And let's be clear, there is some issues around access. Nick hit it on ahead and Harriet did. Money doesn't see color, but people and organizations do. Until we address that, money doesn't see it, but people and organizations do. And we have to admit that and agree to how we're going to move past that and look at what's going to be the best interest, not in the short term. You can't do this work in 3 weeks. It's going to take 3 years or even more to move past. I used to tell my clients, and I end with this, it might take you 3 hours to get your credit all jacked up. One card swipe, one bad bet, one mishap on a weekend away, but it's going to take you 8 months to 3 years to repair that thing. The same thing with this work. If you've been disenfranchised with a banking desert, it's going to take a while to reinvest and build up. It's not going to happen quickly. So I think patience, stamina, innovation is what we need moving forward. And people who have a mindset to stay in it long term and not for short-term glory or to be on a panel and say, I know what's wrong with the community. So I stopped there.
Wow, Victor. So you just out here dropping bars. It's not even noon. So Harriet, to you, Victor talked about the tactical team. So how do you envision leveraging Bank On to address some of these inequity issues that we're seeing?
Well, one of them we touched on, and I know that that's a common theme right now, but I really, really do believe in that education piece and that relationship building piece. Victor also talked about, rolling up your sleeves. I think it was Victor, and working with someone like Nick. When we have a client and we know that there's issues, we have clients that are victims of predatory banking that they're experiencing right now. We need to be able to get those clients to someone that can help them and educate them and work with them, one-on-one. And I also love what Victor said. We know it, we hear it, it's been around for years and years and years, but it's really going to take a small group of individuals working together, the banks working with us, instead of us just sending our clients over there, here, go to this bank and they'll open up an account for you. No, what we need to know is when that client walks through that door, that they are going to be treated a certain way, they're going to be respected, and they're going to be educated about, yes, you've been in check systems and you have had a really bad experience with bank, but now you're in a safe place. And I think that trust is also an issue as well. I think a lot of people do not trust the banks. And so when we walk through that door, we need to know that that professional that's sitting across from us cares about us, but also wants us to make sure that we are building the right type of relationships and getting the knowledge to build that wealth. I think Victor also mentioned, money, it's a tool. And you need to know how to use it. And we're not taught that. And the banking system can help people if you put your money in a money market versus putting it over here. So there's all kinds of educational opportunities that can be had, but we're all going to have to work together on that. And we need to know, for example, our agency, our mentor advocates, when they send that client to, F&M Bank or whatever bank, that client is in good hands. And that they're going to walk away better from having that relationship with the bank than they are right now without it.
Thanks, Harry. And it seems like Tiffany's internet must have went out. So I'm going to step in and take over for her. But Harriet, you spoke about check systems. And yes. I know that is a big issue for some of your clients and for a lot of our clients that come in. And I just want to raise a point that the good thing about one of the benefits or one of the pluses of Bank On is that it helps us to serve and to work people that are caught up in check systems. And so that has been a huge barrier. And so we're really excited about that. The CFE Fund, which is a national organization that supports Bank On and check system, have a strong partnership with working with clients and with financial institutions to continue to serve people that have typically not been able to access bank accounts because of check system. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I was really excited to see that and to know that check systems is a part of Bank On. It's a big plus.
Good stuff. And so, Tiffany, are you back?
Yeah, sorry, y'all. My Wi-Fi was like, work? Nah. So, earlier we were talking about partnerships. And what I heard in that is, oftentimes with partnerships, whether personally or professionally, you have to have uncomfortable conversations. And we know that race and inequality are sensitive topics. So, and they may be uncomfortable folks might feel uncomfortable raising them in places like a Bank On Coalition meeting. But we know that these conversations are critical for progress. So how do we invite people into this conversation and ensure they have a role in moving racial equity efforts and banking access forward?
I'll jump at that one. I think Victor referred to it as something like basically a conversation at the cooler. I refer to it as a dog and pony show. I think a lot of times we create partnerships that look good, but they're just surface level. There's no real work. Race relations conversations aren't uncomfortable typically to Black and brown people because it's been our reality since we came out the womb. It's typically uncomfortable to people who have not had to deal with it, don't want to deal with it, because it, for lack of better words, raises a mirror in front of their faces. And whenever I've had conversations, whenever I'm having conversations, I'm never having a conversation to make anyone feel bad. I just want you to see the reality of the world that we live in. We all have privileges. I have 2 college-educated parents, so I was more privileged than my buddies down the street. But that didn't mean that I didn't have to work hard and bust my tail to get where I was. A lot of times people take that word privilege as if I didn't have to work as hard as you. That's not what that means. It simply means that you didn't have other things, other barriers in your way that unprivileged people did have. So first of all, what we have to do is we have to be willing to have real conversation and not wear our feelings on our sleeves. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but there's a documentary called Who We Are, A Chronicle of Race in America that Jeffrey Robinson did, who was a former ACLU lawyer. It is absolutely phenomenal. One of the quotes that he has on there, he speaks about slavery, because one of the first things that someone would say is, well, I didn't own slaves. My parents didn't own slaves. My grandparents didn't own slaves. Nobody here was a slave. Nobody on here was a slave owner. However, slavery is a reality of our culture, of our country, and of our history. And until we stop acting like bad things didn't happen, we're never going to really get anywhere. Because this whole bank-owned thing, every regulation, every amendment that has ever come from the Constitution or any other document after that has been to right the wrongs of the original document or right the wrongs of the original sins. So we have to be open and honest to discuss those and to really see what can we do to really make change. Because until we have those deep, hard, dark conversations and we keep doing things on the surface level just to check a box to feel good about it, our kids and grandkids are going to be sitting around having the same conversation 50 and 75 years from now. So again, we have to just be open and honest about what we need to do. And like Victor said, roll up our sleeves and get the work done.
Harriet, Victor?
So thanks, Nick, for the launching pad. I think for me, it's just basic, I think Harriet hit it, Nick hit it, is that we must understand two facts. One, we're all different, but we're human, all right? And we live in a capitalist society. And so for those to commingle or cohabitat together, we must understand how the economic ecosystem work. You can have all the policies in the world and you have all the regulations in the world. But if the organization framework does not embrace the core competencies of acceptance and inclusion, if their business model does not allow for the risk tolerance or the lack of not greed profit, but sustainable profit, then you're always going to have this limited access, or I call tier access. I give you in the door, but you can't sit down at the table. That's different. And for me, I think Bank On really gives a opening to get people in the door, but also it helps you grow in mobility in that. Harry hit it on, that when you get to the bank, it's just not I'm leaving at the door as a lost child, and you're gonna somebody take them over, but we can help them grow from not only from a savings checking, but also the loan, the equity. Most folks who don't have bank accounts still have money. I mean, so when we say that the unbanked doesn't have money, I mean, the shadow market, I call it the trade sector, which is booming now. I got some goods, you give me some grain, I give you my plumbing skills, whatever it is, that's still happening. And so the distrust is what we need to break down, to Nick's point. Why does not my community walk to the branch that's right across the street from them? Why did they bypass my branch to go to the payday lender? So those questions, I think, as an institution and even as a community, we need to answer, because in answering the question, it helps us solve the problem. It's not rocket science. I used to tell my team when I was in banking, if you don't know the people within 3 miles of the radius of your office, then you're not doing your job. You should know every organization and do that. But in race relations, anything that has elevated and has been successful always started with confrontation, conversations in the room. No organization who is in the top 10, no Fortune 100s, nobody who's been successful has not avoided having a conversation that might have been a confrontation. What they did learn from that is how to learn how to disagree and agree for the betterhood and betterment of the constituents they're serving. And that requires there's no chiefs in a room. We all are the same in a round table moving forward. So for us to improve race relations is that everyone must have a seat at the table, but also have a voice when they're sitting down.
Harriet, did you want to add anything to that? You don't have to, just asking.
I was going to say, there's so much more I could add, but I think Victor and Nick just put a period on it.
They slayed it.
They did.
So, in that same vein, we see that racial equity, at least the term, is front and center in many of the spaces that we all have to navigate. So how do we leverage this moment to advance banking access? And what would you like to see happen? Going off of some of your answers, I feel like I can guess a little bit. But Harriet, we're going to start with you. What would you like to see happen, and how do we leverage this momentum we have right now?
I think I'm going to start with what Victor said about knowing your community. We are all familiar with, CRA, and it came in, into existence for a certain reason, but we have to get beyond that. You have to know your community, and your community has to get to know you. If that bank is in your neighborhood and your grandma needs to get to banking, when she walks to that door, that loan officer or branch manager, needs to know who's in their community. And also the trust that was mentioned, so I think that that is something that Bank On has already started with help with that. And also training, training are, there's all kinds of trainings on race relations and inclusiveness and all of that. We're all going through a lot of those. But one of the things that we have to do sometimes, I think with Victor or Nick said it, you have to take it to the streets, and you have to be willing to have those conversations that need to be had. So I think that right now, even what we're having today is a good place for us to start, and hopefully those partnerships and those relationships and rolling up our sleeves and getting into the trenches and not caring about whose title and who's who at the table, but just making sure that we're all heard and working on our mindset, not only for our team that worked with each other, but the mindset about the community that we're trying to reach and serve, and give them access to the same thing that everyone else has to, because I think there's also a mindset that we need to work on as well, because we both know that when it comes to wealth, rich people have a certain mindset, middle-class people have a certain mindset, and of course, poor people, underserved people, whatever term we want to use now, has a totally different mindset too. So we have to change that thinking and get people to understand that it's possible to create wealth. It's possible to own a home. There's opportunities, but we just need to have those doors opened and be willing to get into our communities, get to know our communities, and not just the churches either. There's other aspects of our community that needs to be reached. Sometimes that's one of the first place we want to go. We want to go to that church, but there's Boys and Girls Club. There's all kinds of places where financial education is needed. And so we need to reach beyond just that small little segment of the community that everybody's focused on, and look at the big picture, and look at that community as a whole, and especially the ones that need those relationships and needs that education. So that's basically what I think.
Nick, Victor?
So I'm just, I guess, I've been in these moments a lot in my career, and one thing that, I know the pandemic has showed us is that we must learn how to move and maximize our moment to promote our message for our missions. If we do not, then moments pass us by. Something else is going to take the moment. And as we look at, like I said, through a crisis, we get opportunities to collaborate. And I think with George Floyd and even other things that has shown and re-raised his ugly head within our country, I also applaud those who have come together, like those who came together through the civil rights movements, those who came together through the housing movement. Again, it takes a nucleus of dedicated, tactical, stealth teams that have always moved the needle because others are scared of the conversation, and be willing to wear the bullseye. And so I think those who are passionate about it beyond the paycheck, passionate about it beyond the platform and the title, we're going to continue to do this work. We're just asking, and I'm asking, if you're not really true to the cause, then just get out the way, and don't be a hindrance to the movement, whether it's in your chatter or your knowledge. I think there will be some movement because of the Bank On, but it won't be accelerated to the capacity because we have folks who always want to justify another view versus what the view they see right in front of their eyes. So I think the movement is here, but it is a movement. And be clear, it's going to move on to another issue, but those who are committed must stay in the moment to focus on the mission so they can get the message out to those who need it.
Thank you for that, Victor. Nick?
Man, this has been powerful. Harriet and Victor, you guys have just been dropping some jewels, some gems all day. So thank you. Three words that keep coming to mind that I think I've heard a theme of here. One of them is intentionality. You've touched on it quite a few times, Victor, and we have to be intentional about the work that we're doing. We can't just, we got to stop going along just to get along. That's what's not working. You asked that earlier, Tiffany. That's what's not working. Going along to get along, thinking that someone is going to come and fix our problems for us. They haven't in the last hundreds of years, and they're not going to do it now. So we have to be intentional about what it is that we want to accomplish and stay focused on that goal. And just, like he said, if you want to do the work, do the work. It's going to be uncomfortable, but you got to be willing to be uncomfortable. I always break it down, think about a muscle. You know, in order to have a muscle to get stronger or to grow, you must first have to break it down. You know, so we have to break down a lot of barriers. We have to break down a lot of, well, this is how we've always done it. We have to, traditions, we have to kill all of those and just start rebuilding a better society for all. So that's the intentionality aspect of it. Education. Again, we've talked about education a lot. What we've done here at F&M is we don't do training. We don't train our employees to deal with these type of moments. We try to educate them on different perspectives. And the reason I say that is because if you train someone, I'm training them to do a job, to perform a function in between the hours of 9 and 5. But who are they from the hours of 5 to 9? So the difference between the way that we view it, the difference between training and educating is training, controlling them from 9 to 5. Educating them is changing their hearts and their minds. And if you change their hearts and their minds, then when Harriet brings people into the bank, then that individual who's helping them is making them feel like they're valued. They're not looked at, or they don't feel like they're being talked down to in a condescending manner. They feel like they actually matter. And if you educate people, then again, you change their minds and their hearts. And then hopefully you can have a changing of the guard when it comes to how we really view people, how we really and truly treat people. So again, that's one of the things that we're doing here in our DE&I efforts is we educate them by showing videos of just looking at different perspectives. Some of them touch on race, some of them touch on sexual preference or orientation, some of them touch on religion, but it's all about looking at life through a diverse lens and saying, yes, Victor, we all are different. And it's not necessarily what we have that we don't have in common, is but what we have in common. At the end of the day, we all come from different backgrounds, but the one thing we have in common is we're all human, like Victor said earlier. And the last one is accountability. You know, how do we change it this time? Again, in that who we are, he was talking about during the civil rights movement, how we were at a tipping point and the ball was at the top of the mountain. And then Dr. King was murdered and the ball rolled back down the wrong side of the mountain. Right now, we're at another tipping point. So what are we going to do? Are we going to squander this opportunity, or are we going to push, you know, that boat on the other side? And the way that I feel like you push that boat on the other side is everyone who's talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and racial disparities and all of this, and it sounds good as buzzwords, make them put their money where their mouth is. You know, they can talk the talk, but are we going to make them walk the walk? And if we start holding people accountable, then you'll really weed out the people who want to do the work and the people who want to stand on the sideline and just talk.
Fantastic. Y'all, I'm going to skip my last question because there's some really good questions in the chat. The first one I wanted to pose to y'all is, do we have any Black-owned banks present today? Are there any partnerships with those banks to discuss these topics? And Marquita, that might be a you question. I'm looking at your square.
Hi, I'm okay. My internet was going out a bit. I want to throw that. I'm not sure who the if they're talking about on the panel or in the room. I'm not sure, but I'm going to throw that. It says my internet is unstable. Can y'all hear me?
We can, but how about we talk about, are there any Black-owned banks in North Carolina currently?
Yes, I do know.
Do you want to join in? Okay, sorry.
Yes, M&F Bank Mechanics and Farmers Bank. I actually serve on the DE&I council with one of their branch managers out of the Raleigh-Durham area.
Yeah, and I
So-
think, yeah, I mean, that's in North Carolina, yes, M&F. But I think if you want to look at all the minority deposit serving institutions, you know, you go to FDIC website, we have a whole section that you can pull up. Not only that, but also CDFI. So if that's your focus, if you're a lender, want to partner with them, or you're a nonprofit, want to show your support and galvanize around them, go to FDIC or just Google FDIC MDI, and it'll pull up a host of resources about MDIs, how to partner with them, how to reach out to them, not only North Carolina, but across the country.
Awesome. So let's talk about, you just mentioned resources. Are there educational resources that Nick or the rest of the panel would recommend?
So I mean, I'm always going to put a plug in for our Money Smart FDIC. It is a turnkey, free, non-copyrighted that has been transformed, expanded to over 15,000 different iterations of it, but it goes right to the core. It can drill down to simplicity of how to interview your bank, to the point of how to save for the future. So I think that's a starting point. But I think now with innovation, there are so many educational apps and things that are out there. I just say make sure you get with someone like a Harriet or Nick or someone that can guide you, because a lot of them might be a infomercial that might lead you down to something else. But you want to make sure that if they start charging you for something that's free, then that's a warning sign for me. Because a lot of stuff is available for free. So start with FDIC, Money Smart, or go to Bank on North Carolina, and they can direct you to all the plethora of resources out there for financial education and stuff like that.
Awesome. And y'all, there's still some really good questions in the chat, but for the sake of time, we're going to wrap it up. But I'm looking at Marquita. I'm sure Marquita will follow up with the folks in the chat whose questions weren't answered, and make sure they get the information they need. Victor, Nick, Harriet, thank you so much for your expertise and your time. To everybody who attended, thank you for your attention and your interest in this topic and for the work that you're doing on the ground. I salute y'all. Marquita, thank you for another great event. Your leadership is impeccable and I celebrate you. So thank y'all so much and have a great day.
Thank you. And before we move on to our next one, Julie Wells did post in there. Thank you, Julie. Is that the Latino Community Credit Union is led 100% by Latinos. 174 employees are bilingual and bicultural. Thank you, Julie. And so now we will quickly transition to our next panel. And in this panel is called Bank on Talk. And so how do we talk about Bank On as a coalition to our clients? So we have Katie Platt from the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund. This is our lead Bank On administrator on the national level. We'll lead our Bank On Talk discussion. So I am going to hand it over to you, Katie. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Marquita. I'm so happy to be here virtually. I wish we could all be together in person in North Carolina. My name is Katie Platt, and I'm a senior principal at the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund. And as Marquita mentioned, we are the kind of national organization that oversees the national Bank On movement. The CFE Fund's mission is to embed financial empowerment work into local government infrastructure. And as part of that work, we lead the Bank On movement, supporting the Bank On national account standards and the almost 250 certified bank and credit union accounts that meet the standards, and then also support almost 100 Bank On coalitions across the country, including Bank On North Carolina. So happy to be here with my co-panelists, Constance and Justin, to talk about now that we have all these bank on certified accounts, how do we make the case to consumers to actually open these accounts, that these accounts have value? So first, I'll ask Constance and Justin to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their organizations and their work. So Constance, let's start with you.
Good morning. My name is Constance Alberts. I am the program director of Bank On of Greater Milwaukee. And I just want to start off by saying thank you so very much for inviting us to this event. This has been awesome. Those last 45 minutes have just been great. And so with Bank On of Greater Milwaukee, we have been a coalition going on 4 years, September the 17th. So we're extremely excited about being a part of this talk so that we can move, because as they said before, talk without action means nothing.
Great. Thank you, Constance. And Justin?
Good morning. I want to echo my thanks for inviting me to join. I was lucky enough to be able to listen to that first panel as well. And Victor was looking so sharp in his bow tie that I was going to go put one on real quick, but then I kept taking notes and I never got a chance to leave my computer. So thank you everyone for being here. Thanks for the invite. I am Justin Walker. I'm the business development director for an organization called Credit and Home Ownership Empowerment Services, which is a mouthful, which is why we go by Chess Inc. Much shorter, easier to remember. But we're a local nonprofit in the KC area. We host and administer our Bank On as well as our Money Smart programs within Chess, and I'm the program manager for Bank On KC.
Great. So let's start by hearing from both of you just about, how you communicate to consumers now. So how do you talk to folks about the importance of having a bank account and a bank or credit union account, and specifically a Bank On certified account? So Justin, let's start with you. Would just love to hear kind of what you're doing, what's worked, and any lessons that you've learned.
Happily. So it's important to note from just an administrative perspective. So Bank On KC is focused on a geographic MSA that's pretty unique, right? We're one city that shares 2 states, and we're fortunate to have a lot of high profile executives within the financial industry on our coalition. And so we're really looking at not just the Kansas City MSA. I'm lucky enough to have the president of the Kansas Bankers Association on our coalition. And every time I talk to him, he's like, how far west can we go? And there's a lot of room. Those of you who know your geography, there's a lot of room west in Kansas from where Kansas City is to the Colorado border. And so it's been an interesting challenge as we've taken up how to communicate to consumers, how to do so in an effective way that really matters to them. And one of the things that we've found the most successful is to try to bolt on or supplement or promote already existing programs that are happening, that are serving individuals in our communities that are at high risk of not having a bank account or being underbanked and using some alternative, really expensive predatory financial products. And so that means looking for opportunities where there are food banks, transitional housing. The educational arena is something that's been a really big focus for us, because we're seeing opportunities with the summer job program for youth, as well as first generation college students, to be able to get in and start talking about budgeting early on before they're launching their careers. We're also finding opportunities. The VITA program was mentioned earlier. That's a phenomenal opportunity for Bank On coalitions to think about where there are some potential touch points for individuals who are clearly in a demographic that we know are historically underserved, and also who preciously need to hold on to every dollar that's really important to them. So having that connection between your taxes and your budgeting and understanding what you owe the IRS tied to a bank account and being able to budget all year round for that has been really successful for us.
Great. And Constance, what about you? Can you talk about some of the ways that you've found messaging successful and kind of some of the lessons that you've learned?
Well, when we initially started, we determined that we would have 3 focus areas. And those focus areas would be individuals with disabilities, employment, and youth. And so when you take that apart, it kind of hits on all three at the same time, because at any point in time, each of those barriers could be a part for whatever community. And so as we started to look at that, we wanted to really figure out what the community needed, because so often you hear entities coming in saying, we have the answer, without ever having a conversation with the community as to what the issues are and how do we help you to move forward. And so that has always been our approach when we talk to financial institutions about being a part of Bank On. We want to know what their focus area is. Is your focus area youth? Are your focus area veterans? What's your focus area? Because we found that if we can determine your focus area, it's a better chance that we have an opportunity to collaborate. And so then what we've looked at VITA, where we had an opportunity to put together 15 to 45-minute video clips, where these video clips can actually run while individuals are sitting to wait to have their taxes done. So there we're talking about it. With our youth component, we are looking at youth aging out of foster care. We're here in Wisconsin, you actually age out at 18, which is very young to put anyone out there trying to figure out how to manage your finances. So being able to work with that. And then we have the reentry community. There's so many barriers along those lines that it's important to actually have that conversation as to how do we help. So being able to have those conversations. And then we also put together a map that showed the gap where there were not financial institutions and where there was a heavy population of low to moderate income families and those kind of things. So we found that those things really work. But what I will say is that it's so important to find out from your community what the issues and the barriers are that they think that are out there, as opposed to us saying, let's come in with the answers.
Yeah, I love that, Constance. And so how do you think about kind of messaging about these specific barriers, like, or talking to these different populations or focus areas about some of their specific needs? Like how do you make that very specific case to these different types of folks about how a Bank On account can help them?
I think it was said earlier in the other panel, it has to be a relationship. You have to be willing to develop a relationship, and you don't develop that relationship with a cold call. Yep. You develop that relationship with actually being a part of the things that are important to that organization. And so when you come into an organization and have that question as, how can we help better to support you? Because again, if you want to be successful, you have to have a foundation. You have to have something that's going to last. And so by having that conversation as to how do we better help support you, helps us to also say, here are some resources that we have available. And so once you have that conversation, once you develop that relationship, you become part of that trusted messenger. Because when you think about it, organizations who work with individuals, they trust that organization. So they don't know us. So we have to be part of that trusted relationship and that trusted partnership. And so being able to come alongside, you don't start talking to individuals about taxes at tax time at VITA. You need to have these conversations at different times. You need to have the conversation around school buying. You need to have a conversation around summer. So you start the relationship before you're trying to implement a program.
That's a great point. Justin, anything to add to that?
Yeah, just to build off of that, you heard Constance say the word trust several times in that, and it's so phenomenally important to go into the community to build that trust. Victor talked about this as well. We have the research, right? We know where we need to go. We don't need any more meetings. We don't need any more the research white papers. We just need to go into the community and do the work. And a lot of that is having a taco truck in a community on a Saturday afternoon, and really figuring out what that community's needs are, where there are population segments that are traditionally underserved, and who in your community is already serving them, and then find a way to connect Bank On to that versus trying to go it alone and build that trust yourself. find a way that we can all partner together. And that's one of the things that I love that Marquita's doing in North Carolina on a statewide effort, which is so phenomenally difficult, is how to organize and put together all of those puzzle pieces. But the important piece that I think we keep coming back to is to break it down, to have those conversations, and to really understand what what's happening in our communities. Where is that trust fall off? And how can we address that? How can we go upstream to make sure that we're effectively earning that trust? And then on the back end, how we're making good on that. We heard from Harriet earlier about what's the experience in the bank when an individual goes to open a new account. And we've seen a lot of changes over the past couple of years with new protocols. And some of what's really encouraging that we've seen is our national bank partners have changed entirely how bank accounts are opened, particularly bank accounts, that we're not taking stacks of applications out and just filling them out and it being a very impersonal transaction anymore. One of our banks is actually inviting people to make an appointment to come in and get a specialized time where they meet with the bank manager. The manager walks them around the branch, introduces them to all of the team members, talks about all of the products and services that are available, and then we go to the desk and open the account so that you're really walking in and you feel like a valued customer, you feel like you belong there, you feel like this is the right place, that you've made the right decision for your banking your hard-earned dollars.
I love it. And you both kind of touched on this, but what have you found doesn't really work so well, and what advice would you have to folks on the call for kind of avoiding some of these either messages or kind of banking integrations that really don't work in getting folks banked? Maybe Constance, we'll start with you, or either one.
So one of the things that we found is that it's important not to start with, we have these bank accounts for you. It's important to actually have an opportunity to find out what the need is for that organization or that person. What are their goals? How can we help you to get to the goals that you have? And so if we come in talking about, we have these awesome bank accounts, which we do, because for us, banking is that foundation. It's that opportunity and option. But for other people, it may mean something different. Because if you go in with the perception that, why doesn't this person have a bank account? Or why didn't this person do this X, Y, and Z? Then what you do, you put that person on defense, and then they're not going to listen to you. And so again, going in, having that open mind and being able to listen to what the organization is saying is a barrier, because sometimes individuals will just say, well, it's really not like that. We talked a lot about when you go into a bank, if you've never been into a bank, it's very frightening. They all are buttoned up. They speak bank language, and everyone doesn't speak bank language. And so being able to understand that everyone does not come from the same background that you may have come from, and then being able to work with those organizations in regard to the people that they serve. And then having that relationship with the financial institution where you can go in and have a conversation about how they are perceived, or how when you first come in, is there information on the bank account? Is it printed, or is it online? Is there someone to have that conversation? Do they need to say, I'm here for a bank on account? Or do they need to say, I'm here for an account that doesn't have overdraft? What are they saying? How will they be able to connect? And so being able to have that conversation, not only with the customer, but with the financial institution as well. And so one of the things that we've done in the past, we've done secret shopping. So we've actually gone into financial institutions and we've did a variety of different things to find out about the account and about the experience. And then being able to come and have that open and honest conversation with the financial institution and also that community organization that sent that person to that financial institution.
I think one of the biggest pitfalls that we've seen just generally is trying to go it alone, right? Not everybody has to do everything. Not everybody needs to be an expert in all pieces. And that's the joy of these kinds of collaborations, is that we're getting so much input and so much collaboration from the community that we're really able to put the pieces together and make it make sense for individuals who need access to safe, affordable accounts. So kind of checking those assumptions at the door, like Constance mentioned, and really having those conversations, understanding what the community partners are saying, what the feedback is from where the rubber hits the road. And equally as important, Constance mentioned this too, finding out where your financial institutions want to go. What are their priorities? They have CRA requirements, which is great, but within that, there may be a particular passion or mission that the executive level wants to push down. And I laughed when Victor, and go back to this, said, we don't need any more meetings, we don't need any more research. I had the CFO of a bank tell me, Justin, I'm not joining any more coalitions, but if you want to tie into a specific program that we're working on, and this particular institution is doing a lot with the community colleges on both sides of the state line. If you want to tie into that, then Bank On is welcome. But I'm not going to sit in a room and just talk anymore. We're done talking. We really wanted to put some these words into action. And so I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls is thinking that you know everything. But and not taking the time to have those conversations to really tease out what that lexicon is when you're speaking to a community. Is it safe, affordable banking? Is it savings? Is it college savings? Is it retirement savings? Is it consumer loans? Am I trying to get a car loan, or am I trying to start a business? And really just understanding and taking note of that, and knowing too, acknowledging that you're going to have a lot of different messages, right? It's going to need to be tailored to everyone that you're speaking with. There's not a one size fits all solution. But once you understand where that individual is coming from, once you understand that community's needs, then as Constance mentioned, you can say, well, great, we have all of these wonderful accounts for you to choose from. And there's various advantages to them depending on what you're looking to do. And based on our conversation, based on our relationship, I think taking a look at these three banks really makes a lot of sense. And I'm happy to make that introduction for you.
Great. So yeah, definitely making sure you build that trust and really understanding what folks need. I'm hearing both of you say that. And you also both touched on the importance of, being in a coalition. You're not in this alone. You have other partners who can kind of help carry this message. So since I know that most of the folks on this call are either financial institutions or nonprofit partners that are part of Bank On North Carolina, how have you seen financial institutions and nonprofit partners kind of help get this message across, help emphasize the importance of safe accounts and add banking access into their programs?
So one of the things we like to call ourselves the connector. And so our coalition wants to be the connector of our community-based organizations and our financial institutions. And so we want to be able to promote the things that they're having. And by doing that, we also want to connect them so that they can support each other in different opportunities and projects and programs that they have. So being that connector is extremely important. And so as we are talking with the community-based organization and the financial institution, we're saying you have similar goals and visions. How do we help you both to make sure that those goals and visions are actually accomplished? If there is a financial institution 3 blocks from a community-based organization, part of our job, or part of what we've done in Milwaukee, is that we've made that connection. We found out who it was. We brought them together so that they can actually be the ones that continue to move forward. Because I think that's the big part of any bank on, is to stabilize what it is that they're doing. But to do that, you have to bring those partners together in almost like a, for a lack of a better term, a dating situation. So you're really good at this and you're really good at that. I think you guys would be great together. And so bringing them together in that connection is so important. And because they may not know that they have some really similar visions and goals unless you're able to be that connector for them.
And once you've made that connection, like what are some things you've seen, like, words, messaging, what are some things you've seen that how these partners can kind of carry this message forward?
Well, a lot of it has to do with, excuse me, maybe a particular project that they're working on together, where they're, excuse me, able to actually promote that either on their different media contact and printed information. We're working right now with an employer in regard to helping low to moderate income families that are coming through this particular massive employer. So then that financial institution is a part of how do you reach out to them. And then that's that education piece that you're looking at. But then it's also that supportive system that you're looking at too. So it may not just always be about banking. It could also be about housing. It could also be about education. So again, bringing those together. And so what they've done is that they have mirrored each other in regard to the things that they're promoting. So they do those things together. So if there's an event, they're actually tabling the event together. If there is an issue with VITA when we had the shutdown, it was a lot of coming together and tabling the things that they're doing jointly, so that when you saw, let's say, a domestic violence organization, you knew that this financial institution was supporting them. And so just being able to do that, because the majority of things were really brought together as a partnership, and you were able to see that partnership.
Got it. Loving this emphasis on partnerships. Justin, same question for you. How have you seen financial institutions and nonprofit organizations kind of spread this message, work together to share the importance of banking access?
I love the analogy of being a matchmaker, right? Have a budget for flowers and chocolates, right? So that you can just send them to each other. But it is tremendously important. You, as an institution or representative from either your community-based organization or your financial institution, know what your priorities are. And so the more that you can share those, the more that Bank On can evangelize and make that match where where it makes sense. One other piece that I'll mention that has been tremendously impactful for us is working with local governments as well. Elections change the face of local governments every couple of years, and there are new and sometimes competing priorities that come up as a result of those elections. But we've brokered some great relationships with local governments to help us get the word out and respond to some of the needs that elected officials are seeing in their districts and in their communities. One other piece that I'll mention that I'm particularly proud of on the partnership side is one of our community-based organizations is focused really heavily on resettlement of refugees at the moment. And a couple of months ago, earlier this year, a financial institution that is quite literally across the street from this community-based organization got their account certified, and they did it in a really unique way. So not only do they have a certified account, but they've also tied a savings product to it, so that there's lots of options for individuals who open up these accounts right away. So that $25 minimum deposit affords you a tremendous amount of products and services the first day that you walk into that bank. And so hearing that the resettlement piece was really picking up and knowing the geographic proximity to that financial institution, we sat everybody down, invited them to our office and said, okay, how can we make this work? Because on paper, this should be a really easy connection. And fortunately, everybody was willing to jump in because it supports both missions. And when we're going together, we get there much farther and much quicker.
Great. I think in a minute we'll turn it over to Q&A, but before we do, any final advice from both of you on, really making these partnerships, making these connections, and really communicating the importance of safe banking? Constance, maybe we'll start with you.
Well, I also would like to say that our Wisconsin Bankers Association has been very, very supportive of the goal of certified accounts. So having that Bankers Association is extremely important. So that's been awesome. I would also say that one of the things that we try to do is acknowledge the work that our financial institutions and community-based organizations do. We have an annual champion award. And so that award goes to anyone who has really done a lot to promote or network for Bank on the Greater Milwaukee, any innovation programs that they've actually put together. And so again, it's really about being able to support both the financial institution and the community-based organization, because right in the middle are the people. Because so often we talk about numbers, and I dislike talking about numbers. It's so very important to continue to put people first as opposed to programs and procedures and projects.
Definitely. Justin, any final advice or thoughts?
Constance, I'm stealing the champion award. I love that. Don't be shy about what you're doing, I think is the underlying theme. Organizations that are in our communities are doing great work. Our financial institutions are also doing some great work. And the more that we're communicating, the more that we're sharing, the more that we know about what's happening and what priorities are, the better matchmakers we can be, to Constance's point, and to really don't be shy. Let's figure it out. There may not be an immediate connection, but the more that we know, particularly on the banking product side, as apps are being developed and new features are being folded in, the more that we know about what those features are and when they're coming out and what other priorities the financial institutions have, the better we can connect those to the needs in the community, because we want to hear that too from the community-based organizations. And as I mentioned, government as well. We live in a time where government's kind of a hot potato issue, and we want to characterize it as buildings out there walking around, but breaking it back down, coming back to just having the conversation and building trust with your elected officials and your community safety officers. They're going to know, right? They were elected for a reason. They were put in these positions for a reason, and they want to be effective in these roles too. And there's an opportunity across the board for everybody to kind of march together in one direction to help individuals that need these accounts.
Great, I love it. I've really heard themes of building trust, working together, matchmaking and dating, but that's really the goal of a Bank On Coalition, is to have everyone kind of marching to the same beat about the importance of banking access. So thank you both so much. Any questions from the audience on communicating about Bank On or making these connections? Feel free to put them in the chat. Don't be shy.
Hi, Katie.
Yes.
Questions that came in beforehand.
Yeah.
Someone was asking about a new ABA resource for branch staff.
Yes, so I can actually answer that. The National Bank On movement works pretty closely with the American Bankers Association as one of our national partners. And they have been working both at the national level and also with many of the state bankers associations, as Constance mentioned, to really help their financial institution members understand the importance of Bank On. And so just last week, the American Bankers Association actually announced that they have a new free resource for both their bank members, but also other banks that aren't members. That is a training course for branch staff that really explains, what being un or underbanked is, what that means, and then also walks through the Bank On movement, Bank On certification, what it means to offer a Bank On certified account. So I'll make sure that Marquita has that link and can share it out. But so any bank that is either a member of the American Bankers Association or not can access this resource, and I think credit unions can purchase it. So that's a really good option. There, Marquita just added the link, perfect. So that's a great option for branch staff.
So another question that came in general, and we've had this question a lot, is marketing materials, like printed materials and that sort of thing. Do you guys, what suggestions or recommendations do you have for some small organizations or some nonprofits that are interested in getting involved and just want to have information for folks to come in?
Constance or Justin, any thoughts on that?
One of the things I would suggest is, again, to find out what's already available and see if there's a way to tailor it to the needs that you have. We currently put together a flyer that lists all of the financial institutions with their names and the minimum to open and monthly fees and things like that. Very simple. We're working currently on a brochure for our youth non-custodial accounts. But again, instead of reinventing the wheel, you can possibly tweak what's already out there. And so I would suggest connecting with other coalitions and seeing what they have and seeing if it's something that you can really tailor to the needs of your community. And then again, if you're working in regard to an integration with an employer, have that conversation, sit down, and then maybe it will help you to develop a product that you can use with other employers in that particular situation.
Yeah, I'll just add quickly to that. Be ready to make a lot of marketing materials. Be ready to really tweak that language. As Constance mentioned, the un and underbanked aren't numbers. But these are our family members. These are our coworkers. These are our friends and neighbors. And think about it as you're approaching marketing materials, think about looking at it through that lens. And it needs to be specialized. It needs to be personalized. There has to be a specific reason, a motivator that would move them to getting a bank account or even asking the question about starting that. And don't go it alone, right? There's plenty of resources that are out there. As Victor mentioned earlier, tap into the Money Smart program. Talk to your banks because there may be an opportunity, and I'll just put all you bankers in attendance on the hook here. There may be an opportunity to help offset some of those printing costs, right? If you can connect with a community-based organization that has a monthly food pantry, and you can get a specialized flyer that on the back says something about Bank On, you may be able to find a financial institution within that community-based organization's service area to sponsor that, put a logo on it, talk about the product specifically. And that way it's really getting into the hands and speaking to the individuals in a way that makes sense to them.
Great. Any final questions on communicating about Bank On? All right.
Muted. Sorry, I was muted. So someone it says Judy Current is in need of resources for compliance, approved material for disclosures for our accounts in Spanish. And I don't know, Katie, if you can speak to some national resources that Bank On has that are available in different languages.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that is on our national Bank On radar, is making more materials available in more languages. Right now we don't have a ton in Spanish, and I would really say that financial institutions should work with their legal departments on the disclosures question, because I think that'll be really different in every place. But we do have on our CFE website, joinbankon.org. We do have some resources about communicating the importance of a Bank On account. We did some research in 2019 that really looked at the kinds of messages and even keywords that unbanked folks found most compelling about opening a Bank On account. So I would definitely check that out. We also have a page, bankononline.org, which is available in both English and Spanish. And that's really a consumer-facing page that talks about the Bank On movement and highlights Bank On certified accounts that can be opened online. That was a page that we started at the beginning of the pandemic, when the federal government was pushing out stimulus and then child tax credit payments. Those now, we've kind of refocused that page to be more evergreen. So I can put those in the chat, but again, it's our CFE website is joinbankon.org, and the consumer-facing website is bankononline.org.
I'll toss one additional resource, Judy, for you to take a look at. Unidos is the national intermediary for NeighborWorks, and they are always looking for partnership opportunities. And you'll find that they have a wealth of translators available that can help guide and craft some of those marketing materials.
That's great. Okay, well, I think we are at time. So thank you so much, Bank On North Carolina and the Collaborative, for inviting us to participate in this panel. And thank you all for attending. I'll turn it back to Marquita.
Thank you. Thank you. So we are rounding out our summit, and we are about to go into our final discussion that will focus on how Bank On is a plus for financial institutions too. We've learned about the benefits for consumers and clients in our community, but also for financial institutions. And our friend David Bennett from the North Carolina Bankers Association and Centric Community Capital will facilitate this discussion, and I will hand it over to David.
Great, thank you, Marquita, and good morning, everybody. Again, my name is David Bennett. I run Centric Community Capital, which is a affordable multifamily housing lending subsidiary of the North Carolina Bankers Association, based here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So firmly wearing my NCBA hat today. We are proud to be in partnership with the Collaborative in establishing the Bank On North Carolina Coalition. And welcome everybody this morning to Bank On Benefits for Large and Small Banks. With us today, I have two panelists, Ginger Salt, who's the Chief Experience Officer at Piedmont Federal Savings Bank here in Winston-Salem, and then Stephanie Jones with JP Morgan Chase, Head of National Partnerships and Community Relations. And Stephanie, I believe, if I have this correct, you are based in Washington, D.C. You can correct me later if I've got that wrong. But so thank you both for being here, and thank you to all the attendees this morning. So we know that increasing access to banking is good for customers and clients, but offering certified Bank On accounts benefits financial institutions as well. So our discussion this morning is going to explore how offering Bank On certified accounts creates multiple opportunities for success for financial institutions, such as new customer acquisition, partnering with coalitions, good community relations, and CRA opportunities. And I guess I'd like to start just by asking each panelist to provide an overview of their Bank On certified accounts and kind of the key features. Ginger, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Our Bank On checking account is called PF Boost, and it's very easy to open. It's a flat $4 monthly fee. Of course, checklists. They have access to debit cards. You can open it with as little as $20 if you want to open it online and fund it online, Or if you want to go ahead and open with a zero balance and then just come in and fill out the direct deposit information, you're free to do that as well. So it's got very much flexibility. We offer all the features that they might like. Any customer might like: online banking, mobile deposit, again, the debit card, and unlimited free withdrawals at any ATM worldwide. So those are just some of the features.
Great. And Steffi, how about you? Let's pivot to you. Tell us a little bit about your Bank On certified account and features.
Thanks, David, and good afternoon to everybody. And you're right, I am in the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Right now, I'm actually here in the Carolinas, which I'm excited to be. And so you probably see the background because I travel a lot. I'm in a hotel room, but did not want to miss this opportunity. So our product that we're pretty darn proud of is called Chase Secure. And there's a monthly fee of $4.95. And we know that that amount is way less than using a check cashing company. So we're pretty proud of that. It has no overdraft on it, so you don't have to worry about any overdraft fees. We also do not have checks on this account. Online banking is available. Our debit card is available. You can do transfers on the account if you have a savings account. So it's really a product that we are promoting and we're excited about, because this really can save a lot of people a lot of money, particularly if they're using check cashing companies to do their banking.
Great, great. What about the certification process? Ginger, can you tell us a little bit about the account certification process?
You know, it was really easy. We were able to get all the information we needed to develop an account that would be attractive to many audiences, especially our underbanked and our new to banking audiences. So the cities from financial, empowerment were great assistance with that. And it was a smooth process. We would submit account qualifications and received very timely replies. And we're so excited when we got our Bank On seal, and we're able to add that to all of our materials and website.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Stephanie? A different experience or highlights for you through the certification process?
Yeah, I would say what she said, right? Ginger nailed it. It was a pretty simple process. Once we were able to explain the benefits to our prospects and our customers about our product and services, partnering with Bank On was really, really easy to do. Bank On is very reputable in the communities in which we serve. And so we knew that partnering with Bank On was going to be something that we wanted to do, continue to do. And so very easy process. So exactly what Ginger just said.
Great. Well, I know a lot of what we want to talk about today is the benefits of these accounts for banks. So let's shift our focus a little bit and talk about some partnership opportunities. So Ginger, when Piedmont Federal launched its Bank On account product, how have you been able to collaborate with nonprofits that are located in your footprint? And how would you categorize the work that you're doing with Bank On as far as fitting within your organization's mission?
This has been a great opportunity. We support a lot of nonprofits in our community. So we've been able to position this account as a great benefit for nonprofit partners, the people that they serve. We have also featured this as a key component of our workplace banking program. We have a Bank at Work program that we offer to companies, including nonprofits, including employers that employ a large percentage of minimum wage workers. And we've really seen a lot of interest. We have signed up restaurants. We've worked with the Do School, which is a program to teach recently people that have been in the workplace before, maybe have had some trouble, teach them new skill sets. We are working with Forsyth Jail and Prison Ministries for folks that are getting ready to leave incarceration and want to re-enter the world with a bank account. we've worked with big brothers, big sisters. So it's given us a great opportunity to not only say, hey, we want to support you with our funds, but we also want to support your clientele with our banking services. And that's been a great advantage of the program.
Fantastic. How about you, Stephanie? What tell us about Chase and your experience partnering with local organizations?
So one of the great things that we've experienced is we have now community managers. We started with about a year ago, 150 community managers based in our low to moderate income areas. And their sole responsibility is to go out into the community and become known and understand what the community needs are. And we do that by having listening sessions because we want to hear the concerns of the community and not sit in a boardroom, quite frankly, and think we have all the answers. What I will tell you is that what we've learned is partnering with our nonprofit organizations. A lot of the nonprofit organizations that we work with have the same goals that we do, and that is to uplift the communities in which we serve. And so doing that, yes, there is a benefit to the bank as far as acquisition is concerned, right? But most importantly, it's really our obligation to make sure that we're lifting communities and helping them to thrive and to achieve their goals. And so by having our community managers in our low to moderate income areas to be able to help deliver financial health and education and talk about the products and services that we have to help the unbanked and the underbanked become banked, and to do it in a responsible way. So there's a benefit, yes, for the bank, but however, I will tell you, it's really, really a great thing for the communities that we're serving to help uplift everyone so that everyone can achieve the American dream of achieving their goals.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said I want to pick up on something you mentioned a moment ago about just doing things in a responsible way. So tell us a little bit, Stephanie, about how you're finding that the accounts are performing and how the clients are using the account template and your experience so far, and opportunities for expansion going forward.
Yeah. So let me talk about the expansion piece of it so far. What I will tell you is that we started out about a year ago with 150 community managers. And what we've seen is that, we've had such great success in the community with feedback from the community about the financial education that we're doing and delivering, but also about our product with Chase Secure, that we've actually going to be expanding that number. Can't announce the number yet, but we do know that the number is growing. We got the okay from our CEO, Jamie Dimon, to expand that number. But it's going very well because what we realized too is that being in the community, we're able to talk about Chase Secure. A lot of people don't know that Chase Secure exists. They think that it's just the bank, right? Bank has another banking account that's going to charge me a bunch of fees. And quite frankly, being one of the largest or the largest financial services institution, some people think that they can't afford to bank with us. And that's just not true. We are the bank for all and the bank for everyone. And with our community managers, we're able to get that message out in the communities in which we serve. And so that's been a big, big benefit and a big help.
Well, and thank you. And as our title says, bank on benefits for large and small banks. And so thanks for sharing that experience from Chase. So Ginger, now I want to pivot to you as the small bank, although y'all have been growing, I know. But tell us a little bit about your account performance, what you're seeing, how your clients are using, and kind of expansion opportunities from the perspective of a smaller institution.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we realized, and I heard this in an earlier session, we can't just say we've built it, you have to come. We need to be there. And I mentioned our workplace banking program. We can go right there on site and open accounts for people because that's more convenient. And, bank buildings tend to be a little bit intimidating. So we've got to be where people are. And we've had, I just looked at our average balance for our PF Boost account, and it's around $500. So there's a nice, healthy balance in there. It's a great account. We've positioned it such for people that are new to banking, as well as people that maybe had a bad relationship with the bank. And as Stephanie said, it was too complex. There were lots of fees. With this being simple and resembling something that they're used to, but in a non-predatory manner from a check cashing service, it offers a lot of peace of mind. So we've been happy with the performance, and we're just continuing to promote it as one of our checking options out of several. And then again, continuing to use it as a key part of our partnerships with community organizations and our workplace banking.
Great. Excuse me. Stephanie, let me ask you a question as far as experiences with other markets as you know, Bank on North Carolina kind of takes root and grows. What are some success stories that you've heard or seen from other markets that are maybe a little bit more established with Bank on coalitions, and kind of the impact that Bank on has had?
Well, you know, one of the things I'll say about partnering with Bank On is that, you know, it's a well-known name and organization. So there's a lot of respect that goes with Bank On. And so, you know, it gives us a lot of great pleasure to partner with Bank On because of the reputation, because of the name. I can tell you, I sat on a panel, and my memory is going to challenge me a little bit. I think it was about 2 years ago before COVID, and I thought we were in Chicago at the time. And what I'll tell you is, or maybe it was Boston, I think it was Boston actually. And one of the things I will tell you is that I really, as well as the community managers, don't really have to sell Bank On. Bank On sells itself, right? And when I think about, you know, who we work with, the partners in Bank On or at Bank On, they care. They deeply care about the people in the communities, and so do we. And so it's really nice to partner with an organization that really cares and wants to get out into the communities. And like Ginger stated earlier today, you know, we can't just sit back and just say, here's what we want to do, but we're not present in the market. You know, we are literally in the market, in the communities, face to face, holding listening sessions, meeting with our customers and prospects, or those that don't bank with us today, right? Because the idea is to uplift the community. And so we know that when we uplift the entire community, the banking relationships will naturally come, right? That will come. But that's not what we're going in to do. That's not our primary focus. Our focus is to teach, to educate, and make sure that everyone is aware of all the products, benefits, and services that they're entitled to. And just to make sure that that awareness continues to grow. And the rest of it, it'll naturally happen.
Great, thank you. I want to be sure that we leave some time for Q&A for attendees, but I'll wrap up with a question for each of you. For financial institutions maybe that are interested in offering a Bank On certified account, what advice or lessons learned would you offer? I guess, Ginger, let's start with you on this one.
Sure. I would say, you know, it's very easy to work on the certification process. The other thing I would say is be patient and continue to build relationships. You may not start off getting hundreds of accounts out of the gate, but it takes time to build trust and understanding. And so continue to leverage the relationships you have with your nonprofit partners and seek new opportunities. And engage your account opening staff. One of the most heartwarming things that I heard when I presented this to our branch staff is, oh, good, because we have a feature where we will allow you to open an account if you have a record on check systems. It just has to be less than $500. They were like, oh, good, because we hate turning people away. Yeah. And we are so excited this is going to open up the possibility. So they were very enthusiastic about it. But sometimes it takes several meetings with prospective customers and with our nonprofit partners to help foster that understanding and adoption of it. And so just be patient. And then, you know, as Stephanie and others have said, it benefits our communities, it benefits our bank, and it benefits our customers. So it's just a win-win, and stay in it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Stephanie, how about you? Any lessons learned, suggestions, ideas for financial institutions that are interested to keep in mind?
I am loving hearing Ginger speak as a fellow financial services institution, because it gives me great pleasure to say, yeah, what she said. And then let me add some pieces to it to say that Our bankers also in our branches do a needs assessment with everyone, and we will do a needs assessment to assess exactly what you need. We're not going to offer you or sell you anything that you don't need, but we're going to help you talk about and think about what your goals are and where you are today, and we're going to meet you where you are today. Partnering with Bank On, I'm just going to take a page from Nike and just say, just do it. Just do it. We've learned so much by partnering with Bank On because yes, we do learn a lot from our communities, but Bank On is there. Bank On has done this for a long time. It's a great partner organization to partner with. And we ourselves, we've learned a lot from Bank On as well. So even as we continue to develop and refine our products and services, we will go to Bank On and say, hey, what do you think, right? Give us some feedback. And then we take that feedback to our product developers and we say, here's what we know, here's what we've learned, here's what we've heard. So I would just say in a nutshell, take it from Nike and just do it.
Wow. Simple instructions, definitely. Well, good. Well, I think at this point, definitely want to open up the Q&A to the attendees. Just encourage anybody with a question. I'll monitor the chat here. If there are any questions from the audience.
So I have some questions that came in ahead of the panel regarding the panel.
Right.
And this was a general question is from a financial institution that wants to know how they could get started with Bank On. What are the steps? What are the processes? And I don't know if one of you guys want to take that or if you want me to take that.
Yeah, I would tell you to take that one for me as far as how to get started. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So if you're interested in moving forward or starting with Bank On, I'm going to ask you to get in touch with me and I will connect you with, I call them the Bank On certification team. And what they will do is I shouldn't say a lot of financial institutions, but some financial institutions already have bank accounts that meet Bank On their certification standards. And if that's the case, it involves filling out an application. Some financial institutions may have to tweak or they may not have products that match that. And so we work with the Bank On certification team to develop a product or to tweak a product to move you in that direction. And so if anyone is interested, feel free to reach out to me and I will make that connection and get this moving forward. And we always have Ginger if you want some more pointed or personal questions about the certification process. I'm sure that Ginger would be happy to speak with you one-on-one to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Ginger. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, I would say absolutely. And if you want to, we were one of the ones that we had a lot of the features of the Bank On certification, but there were a few things we needed to add and tweak, and it really wasn't that hard. We had lots of good contacts with the Bank On partners, and we also, could run things by them. And so it really, it was really a very simple process, but if anybody wants to talk it through, and the other great thing is I was given some other banks to talk to that had implemented the program. So if you ever need me as a sounding board to find out about our program, please contact me and I'll tell you what we did and who we talked to and how that helped us shape the parameters of our account.
Yeah, I will tell you that, I personally was not intimately involved in the certification process. However, we have a separate team that has partnered to do our certification with Bank On. But I've worked with Bank On, and I can tell you again, you heard me talk about the learnings, but Bank On is really easy to work with because they'll guide you step by step by step. And if you have a product or service that you're in the process of thinking about or developing, they will let you know, what the needs are that you need to tweak a little bit or change a little bit. So they're very, very easy to work with. And, Ginger mentioned it earlier, the bank accounts and the relationships, they will come and it will grow. And you'll start to see a lift, is particularly into the lower to moderate income areas. You'll start to see year over year growth in those accounts, and you'll see the balances start to grow. That also gives you an indication that the work that you're doing is working in those communities as you start to look at the growth in those accounts and those balances.
Right.
And I will add that someone reached out to me, a financial institution, a couple of days ago, and they had an account that seemed to align pretty closely with the Bank On certification standards. And what happened was, as I reviewed it, I thought it aligned, and I got with what I call the Bank On certification team, and they also thought it aligned and sent them over an application. And right now they're completing the application and are well on the way to having a Bank On certified account. So, and there are instances where, like Ginger said, where people do need a little more, that there are some things that they need to update or tweak. And the Bank On National folks, along with the Bank On North Carolina Coalition, walk through that process with the folks step by step. So we try to make it as seamless and turnkey as possible.
Mm-hmm. And I have to give a shout out to you, Marquita, as well, because, you know, even just your partnership, you know, leading up to this call, and just how easy it was to talk about, you know, what we're offering and any changes that we may need to do. So I would echo that, reach out to Marquita if you have any questions whatsoever about partnering with Bank On.
Ginger, there's a question in the chat box directed at you. It says, you are a wonderful proponent of Bank On. So tell us about Piedmont Federal as an institution. Is Piedmont Federal enthusiastic, or did that process take some time? And I think I know the answer, knowing David Barksdale pretty well.
Well, I'll tell you, part of our strategic pillars are around creating equitable access. And that is critical. And this is a critical component of enabling that access. So we are very enthusiastic about Bank On and how we can reach more people, and how we can, you know, remove the predatory influence out there, and help people enjoy a stress-free relationship with the bank. So again, I mentioned our customer-facing staff was so excited that we had a product now that we could offer people that maybe couldn't qualify for a checking account because of a past experience. And so it's really opened up things for us. And it's also opened up, you know, relationships with our nonprofit partners. So we're pretty big cheerleaders.
Fantastic. We've got a couple more minutes. Any other questions from either Marquita that came in ahead of time, or anybody in the that's viewing that wants to put a question in the chat box before we wrap this session up?
So I had an email question. I think there must have been some issue with the chat, but someone had reached out. Ginger, you spoke about going to on location or on site to open bank accounts. And this person wants to know a little more about that. How does that work? How do you guys do that? Is it a schedule? Just a little about that.
Sure. And we're about to get more capabilities to make it even easier. But we currently, you can open an account online, so we can take our laptops to an organization. If we're doing like a bank at work presentation, if the employer has agreed that we're going to be their benefits partner and they offer these features to their teammates there, then we can go on site. We've done some on sites before. We talk a little bit about the program, and, you know, PF Boost is one of the accounts in the program. So we have that capability right now to be there with them and open it online with our laptops. We'll soon be getting the really cool tablets. So we're excited about that. And again, we realized we can't ask people to come into the bank. It's not convenient. It may be a bit intimidating with the large teller counters. So that's why we will take our laptops to wherever they are. We just recently went to our local community college and did a presentation there on budgeting. And we had a lot of interest. And then, you know, we were there on site to answer questions, share information, and open accounts.
Sounds good. And that's one thing that we haven't really talked about during this summit. But not only is our bank on partners there to open bank accounts, but they're also there as a resource in terms of financial literacy and educating the community. And as we, Bank on North Carolina is very new, and we are working on that. But one of our goals is to have a list or just a place where folks in the community can go to reach out to people when they need financial education and when they need a partner to come in and talk about those sorts of things. And that's going to lead me in to another question that came up. There is El Centro Hispano has a community event, and they're interested in how they can get a bank on partner to come visit outside. At this time, you can connect with me. I'll reach out to you online. And I don't want to mispronounce your name, but I'll reach out to you offline, and I will try to connect you with some resources. But in the very near future, our website, our Bank on North Carolina website is under construction, but in the very near future, there will be a list of contacts and organizations that folks can reach out to receive financial literacy as part of Bank on North Carolina. So great question.
Mm-hmm. If I may add something there, if I may just add something that, I'm happy to have anyone reach out to me as well, as far as what we've done with our financial literacy and education. We started it about a year ago with our community managers, and I can tell you the attendance has been wonderful. It's amazing to us just how great the turnout has been, and the need we know is so great of how many people need financial literacy. So I'm happy to give you my email address. It's Stephanie.Jones, at jpmorgan.com. Feel free to reach out to me about that, because we continue to learn and grow with that as well. When we first started out, we started teaching classes around budgeting and planning and saving and, how to become bankable. And now what we've heard from a lot of the communities is, tell us about wealth management. Tell us how to get into the stock market. And so now we've put a curriculum together of Wealth Management 101 or Investing 101. So feel free, if you have any questions about what we're doing around teaching and educating around financial literacy, I'm more than happy to jump on a call with you.
Great. Well, I know, Marquita, it looks like we are kind of at our time limit. So Ginger and Stephanie, I guess we'll wrap up. I want to thank you both for being part of the panel discussion today. And Marquita, thank you for inviting me as well. The North Carolina Bankers Association, we want to be a partner to all the financial institutions across the state to assist those institutions and obviously assist them with their outreach to the community. And products like this are fantastic. We're really proud to be a part of the effort and in partnership with the initiative on this. So again, thank you for this opportunity. And I guess I will hand it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank everyone that joined us today. And thank you to our speakers and our panelists for your rich discussion. I just added Stephanie and Ginger's email address to the chat, so you can reach out to them directly. And as we discussed at the top of the call, Bank on North Carolina needs your support, and your organization can participate at any level that makes sense for you. But just know there are ways that you can participate. Your organization may not be ready at this point in time to add a Bank on certified account. But you may want to connect folks with Bank On. And I'm going to ask Maria to put our screen up. And so if that is you, if you're interested, there are many ways for you to do that. Specifically, our focus group, as we said earlier, we're focused on organizations that engage clients that receive employment services, youth services, VITA, affordable housing, and financial literacy and equity services that we should be engaging. And so if you are interested in just promoting Bank On to you or your clients, or you're interested in integrating this into your work, or if you're a financial institution interested in engaging your community partners, let them know. And we will let us know, and we will connect them. We also have Bank On North Carolina committees, and this is a way for you to be even more active in that. And so, like I said, there are many ways for you to participate. And if there are no questions, I am going to, Maria, can you put the sponsor screen back up one more time, one slide back? Thank you. I want to thank our sponsors again. Wells Fargo was our presenting sponsor, and First Horizon was our Platinum Premier sponsor. And there's some other sponsors that made this all possible for everyone. And these sponsors not only sponsor the conference, but they also sponsor and are strong supporters and very engaged in Bank On North Carolina. And we could not be here. We would not be here without their support. And to our partners that we highlighted earlier, we couldn't be here without our sponsors' support, but we couldn't be here without our partners' work. So thank you all for this, and look for an email towards the end of the week with a recording of this and some resources and follow-up things. Thank you so much for your time, and you guys have a wonderful day.